The Kryn Dominion had conquered 100 worlds without pause. Their war doctrine was simple: overwhelm, crush, and move on. When their fleet arrived at Helios 3, they expected no deviation. The planet's defenses were a laughable patchwork of repurposed mining platforms and aging missile silos. The Kryn Admiral Skrull Vor observed the engagement with the detached interest of the scientists watching an experiment reach its inevitable conclusion. Then a single warship emerged from behind Helios 3's moon. At first glance, the HSS Dauntless hardly seemed worth noting. Its hull was a mismatched assembly of reinforced plates, some still bearing the logos of civilian freighters. Its weapon systems were a bizarre mix of outdated Earth tech and battlefield salvages. Yet it moved with undeniable purpose, positioning itself between the Kryn Armada and the defenseless colony below. Admiral Vor sneered. A single ship? How human. Inside the Dauntless, Captain Elias Voss studied the approaching Kryn forces with measured calm. He wasn't a man prone to dramatics. His steel blue eyes assessed, calculated, adjusted. Every officer on his bridge had their role, and Voss knew how to make them shine. "All right, folks," he said, tone light but edged with command. "We're in a bit of a situation." Lieutenant Gene Park, the chief engineer, scoffed from his station. "You mean grossly outnumbered with a high probability of fiery death?" "Exactly that," Voss agreed. "I like to keep morale up." Dr. Miriam Okoye, the ship science officer, adjusted her glasses. "Diplomacy is still an option. Against a species that subjugates first and asks questions never?" Gunnery Chief Rico Martinez leaned back in his chair, feet propped up. "Doc, you're adorable." Okoye sighed, shaking her head. "I'd like to remind everyone that every major victory in human history started with someone thinking outside the box." "Good thing we have Gene for that," Voss said, glancing at the engineer. "How's our patchwork masterpiece holding up?" Park exhaled through her nose. "You mean the glorified scrap heap we're flying? Engines are running at 80% efficiency. The railguns are still crosswired with the shield grid, and I'd really prefer it if no one fires the ventral thrusters, or we might lose half the comms array." "Noted. Rico, anything clever we can do with our firepower?" Martinez grinned. "Oh, always. We might not have the Kryn's fancy plasma lances, but we got good old-fashioned human ingenuity. And explosives. Lots of explosives." Voss leaned back, steepling his fingers. "We need to buy time. Reinforcements from Sol are 12 hours out. The Kryn won't wait that long, but if we can throw them off, make them hesitate." "They don't respect us yet," Okoye mused. "But if we make them think we're unpredictable, dangerous, they might not charge and head first." Voss finished. "Exactly." Martinez cracked his knuckles. "All right, let's show them what humans can do." A battlefield of wits. The Kryn fleet moved in standard formation, methodical, disciplined, overconfident. Their battle cruisers assumed a staggered approach, relying on sheer firepower to wipe the Dauntless from existence. Voss smiled. Predictability was a weakness. "Gene, light up the mines." Park activated a sequence of hidden beacons. From the asteroid belt behind Helios. 3. A cluster of automated mining drones sprang to life. They weren't designed for combat, but under Park's modifications, their industrial-cutting lasers and volatile fuel cells became makeshift weaponry. The Kryn fleet hesitated as the drones swarmed forward. Their targeting system struggled to distinguish them from standard debris, and in that moment of confusion, the Dauntless struck. Fire! Railguns roared. The rounds weren't standard projectiles, but chunks of repurposed hull plating, jagged and irregular. They weren't meant to be weapons, but they worked. The Kryn's forward ships shuddered as unexpected impacts sent them off course. Voss watched as the alien formation fractured, their disciplined approach cracking under sheer unpredictability. "Martinez, how's morale looking over there?" "Oh, they love us," the gunner said, delight in his voice. "One of their heavy cruisers just opened fire on their own mines, trying to clear them." Voss allowed himself a small smile. "Good. Keep them reacting, keep them guessing." But Kryn weren't fools. Admiral Vor adjusted his tactics. The next wave of ships advanced in a tighter formation, cutting through the drones with ruthless precision. The Dauntless had drawn first blood, but the real battle was only beginning. A heavy blast rocked the ship, making the bridge tremble. Shields at 50%. Park called, "We cannot take direct hits like that all day." "Then we don't let them hit us," Voss said. "Gene, reroute power to lateral thrusters. We'll fight like a brawler, never in a straight line. Miriam, any chance you can confuse their sensors?" Dr. Okoye's fingers dance across her console. "I'm broadcasting false fleet signals now. If they fall for it, they'll think we got backup incoming." Martinez let out a low whistle. "That's dirty." "That's war," Okoye corrected. Voss nodded. "Good. Now let's see how much chaos we can cause before they catch on." A moment of irony. Aboard the Kryn flagship, Admiral Vor's mandibles twitched in frustration. He had expected a swift victory. Instead, he was watching an inferior vessel outmaneuver and outthink his forces. "This isn't possible," one of his lieutenants hissed. "Their technology is archaic." Vor's four eyes narrowed. "Technology isn't the issue. It was their methods. These humans didn't fight the way the Kryn expected. They didn't follow standard tactical doctrine. They improvised recklessly, chaotically, but effectively. Vor had underestimated them. A mistake he would not make again." He rose from his command throne, mandibles clicking in thought. "Enough of this," he growled. "Bring in the dreadnoughts. We end this now." The Kryn dreadnoughts emerged from a void like executioners arriving at a sentencing. Massive, wedge-shaped vessels bristling with plasma lances and disruptor cannons. They dwarfed the Dauntless in both size and firepower. Their hulls pulsed with an eerie, bioluminescent glow, each a mobile fortress, imposing, indomitable, inevitable. On the Dauntless bridge, the mood darkened as the sensor readouts updated. Lieutenant Gene Park let out a slow breath. "Well, that's terrifying." Captain Elias Voss studied the screen, his face unreadable. "For dreadnoughts, he's committing serious firepower to wipe us out." Gunnery Chief Rico Martinez leaned back in his chair. "You know, I was kind of hoping they'd be dumber." Dr. Miriam Okoye adjusted her glasses, scanning the data. "Admiral Vor isn't underestimating us anymore. That's concerning." Voss exhaled through his nose. "Not yet, but if he's bringing in the big guns, he still thinks brute force will work. That means we have an opening." Park turned in her chair. "Do we, though? Because I don't know if you've noticed, but we're still just one ship." Voss gave her a wry look. "One very annoying ship. Humanity's edge, chaos." The Kryn fleet moved with surgical precision, their dreadnoughts advancing in a stagger formation, their battlecruisers spreading out to flank. It was a classic encirclement tactic, designed to corner, suppress, and annihilate. Against any other enemy, it would have been flawless. Against humans, it was predictable. "Gene," Voss said, "you ever hear the Thompson Gambit?" She frowned. "The one where a single ship breaks a blockade by pretending to be out of control?" Voss smiled. "That's the one, but we're going to modify it." Park raised an eyebrow. "Oh, great. A historical strategy and reckless improvisation. My two favorite things." Voss ignored her sarcasm. "Kill the stabilizers on my mark. Let them think we're crippled." Park hesitated. "If I do that, we're actually going to be crippled. Only for a little while." Martinez grinned. "Oh, I love this plan." Okoye sighed. "That makes one of us." The ruse. The Dauntless suddenly lurched, its trajectory wobbling, as if the stabilizers had failed. From an outsider's perspective, it looked like the ship had taken a critical hit. Drifting off course, vulnerable. The Kryn took the bait. Vor's voice crackled over the Dauntless comms, translated through guttural growls. "Your resistance is over, humans. Surrender, and your suffering will be swift." Voss leaned forward, pressing the comm switch. "Sorry, we can't take your call right now. Please leave a message." He cut the transmission before Vor could respond. Martinez let out a bark of laughter. "You're actually taunting them?" Voss shrugged. "Just making sure they're mad enough to do something dumb." The Kryn dreadnoughts closed in for the kill. Plasma lances glowed brilliant blue, charging for a final barrage. Then Park hit the switch. The stabilizer snapped back online, and the Dauntless twisted violently, rolling into a sudden, unpredictable course. At the same time, Martinez fired a full salvo, not at the dreadnoughts, but at the debris field behind them. Chunks of asteroid and ruined ships erupted outward, slamming into the Kryn formation. One of the battlecruisers, caught mid-turn, took a direct hit to its starboard thrusters, sending it careening into a dreadnought's flank. The Kryn fleet hesitated, just for a moment, but it was enough. Punch it. Voss barked. The Dauntless rocketed forward, skimming just past the dreadnoughts, weaving between their formations before they could adjust. The ship twisted at impossible angles, dodging incoming fire by meters, pushing its thrusters past safe limits. The Kryn, methodical and rigid, struggled to keep up. The art of improvisation. Park's hands flew across her console, shields at 30%. Hull integrity's holding, but not for long. Okoye was already working another angle. I've intercepted their fleet communication. They're struggling to adjust tactics mid-battle. Martinez hooped. Classic Kryn problem. They can hit hard, but they don't know what to do when the fight gets messy. Voss grinned. Let's make it messy, eh? Permission to do something really stupid? Martinez asked. Voss didn't hesitate. Granted. Martinez overloaded the railgun capacitors, dumping all remaining charge into a single, massive kinetic shot. The round wasn't aimed at a Kryn ship. It was aimed at a nearby moonlet, a small celestial body orbiting Helios 3. The impact shifted the moonlet's trajectory, sending a hailstorm of debris into the Kryn fleet's path. The Kryn dreadnoughts were powerful, but they weren't maneuverable. The leading ship took a direct impact, its shields failing catastrophically. A second was forced to veer off course, colliding with a smaller cruiser. Chaos. Pure, unfiltered chaos. Voss exhaled. That should buy us some time. The turning point. But Kryn weren't entirely inflexible. Vor adapted. Enemy dreadnought locking weapons. Okoye called. They're targeting our engines. Before Voss could react, a searing beam of plasma lanced across the dauntless hull. The ship shuddered violently as alarms blared. That was our aft shielding. Park shouted, "We can't take another hit like that." Voss gritted his teeth. The gamble had worked, but now they were limping, and the Kryn were regrouping. "We need an out," Okoye said urgently. Voss' mind raced. The Kryn had the upper hand again, but there was still one thing he knew for sure. They still didn't understand humans. He turned to Park. "How fast can you rig a fake reactor meltdown?" Park blinked, then grinned. "Oh, that kind of stupid plan. Give me 3 minutes." Martinez, "We're going to make it look like we're going nuclear. Make it convincing." Martinez cracked his knuckles. "I'm going to make it legendary." The dauntless engines flickered erratically. A pulse of energy surged outward, giving every impression an imminent catastrophic explosion. The Kryn hesitated. Admiral Vor watched as his targeting systems glitched. Was a human ship about to self-destruct? If he fired and hit an unstable reactor? For the first time, he hesitated. And that was all the Dauntless needed. "Burn hard," Voss ordered. The Dauntless shot forward, slipping through the gaps in the Kryn formation, vanishing into deep space before they could react. The Dauntless drifted through the void, its hull scarred, its engines sputtering. They had survived the impossible, slipping through the Kryn formation with a mix of audacity and sheer human madness. But survival was temporary. Damage reports flooded the bridge. Lieutenant Jean Park wiped sweat from her forehead as she rattled off the grim list. Engines are at 40%. Shield generators are fried. We got microfractures across the outer hull, and life support is running on backup. Oh, and we're out of torpedoes. Gunnery Chief Rico Martinez groaned. "So basically we're a floating coffin." Dr. Miriam Okoye ignored him, her fingers racing across her console. Kryn battle telemetry confirms their fleet is reorganizing. Vor isn't making the same mistake twice. He's deployed fast attack corvettes to hunt us down. Captain Elias Voss took all this and gazed calm but calculating. How long until they reach us? "Maybe 20 minutes, Okoye said. "Less if they push their thrusters." Voss exhaled through his nose, scanning the bridge. His crew had pulled off the impossible once, but now they were cornered, outgunned, and running on fumes. Every logical option pointed toward retreat, except there was nowhere to run. "We're not going to outrun them," Park muttered. "Not in this condition." "We don't have to," Voss said. Martinez perked up. "Oh, do we have some insane ace up our sleeve?" "Not yet." Voss turned to Park. "But we're about to make one." Outthinking the Kryn, the Dauntless had one advantage left: human adaptability. The Kryn fought with overwhelming firepower and precision tactics, but they struggled with rapid, unpredictable battlefield shifts. Voss intended to break their thinking entirely. "Jean," he said, "can we rig the remaining thrusters for short, rapid bursts?" She frowned. "If you don't mind possibly blowing out half our systems, sure. I'll take that as a yes. Here's the plan." As Voss explained, the crew's expression shifted from confusion to realization. Okoye's eyes widened. "That might actually work." Martinez grinned. "Will work if we don't die horribly." Park rubbed her temples. "You say that like it's reassuring." Voss simply smiled. "All right, let's get to work." The Kryn close in. Admiral Skrovor watched his tactical display, his mandibles twitching in irritation. The human ship was damaged, sluggish, hopelessly outmatched, yet it had escaped him twice. That was unacceptable. "Deploy the corvettes," were ordered. "Surround them. End them." The Kryn fast attack ships surged forward. Their pilots were trained hunters, specialists in eliminating wounded prey. They expected an easy kill. Instead, they got pure chaos. The Dauntless erupted into motion, not a clean burn, not a steady retreat, but erratic, unpredictable bursts. It jerked sideways, spiral mid-flight, skidded between debris fields like a stone skipping across water. The Kryn corvettes hesitated. Try and predict the trajectory. Their computers failed to adjust in time. The Dauntless cut through their formation like a wild beast lashing out. Martinez fired the last of the railgun rounds, not the ships, but nearby asteroid fragments, sending jagged shrapnel flying into the enemy ranks. One Kryn corvette took a direct hit, its shields failing instantly. Another overcompensated, smashing into a derelict cruiser. In seconds, what had been a calculated Kryn strike turned into a chaotic, close-quarters brawl. Something the Kryn were terrible at handling, an unexpected offer. But then, something unexpected. The comms flickered. A Kryn transmission came through, not from Admiral Vor, but from a lower-ranking commander. The alien's voice was guttural, rough. "Human captain, you fight with cunning. This we acknowledge." Voss narrowed his eyes. "Go on. Vor underestimates you, but we do not. Surrender your vessel. Join us. The Dominion rewards strength." A beat of silence. The crew exchanged looks. Martinez snorted. Did they just try to recruit us?" Okoye's voice was hushed. "They respect our tactics. They see us as useful." Park scoffed. "That's rich. They were just trying to kill us." Voss studied the Kryn fleet. He understood what was happening. There were divisions within the Kryn hierarchy. Vor ruled by sheer dominance, but his officers? Some were beginning to question. This was an opportunity, not to surrender, but to exploit their doubts. Voss tapped the comms. "Tell your forces to stand down and we'll consider it." A pause. The Kryn commander hesitated. "I will relay your words." The transmission cut. Okoye exhaled. That was a gamble. Voss nodded. "A necessary one." Park frowned. "And if Vor doesn't care?" Voss's expression hardened. "Then we go to Plan B." Martinez perked up. "Oh, I love Plan Bs." "What is it?" Voss turned toward the display, where a massive rogue asteroid loomed in the distance. "We use that." Setting the trap. The Kryn fleet was closing in again. If the offer of surrender was a stalling tactic, it hadn't stalled for long. Vor was coming, and he was done playing games. But that was fine, because so were they. Park rerouted all remaining power into a precise thruster burn, pushing the Dauntless toward the asteroid. Martinez worked feverishly, rigging the last explosive charges onto debris fields along their trajectory. As the Kryn followed, the Dauntless cut sharply to the side at the last moment. baiting the enemy forward. The first wave of Kryn ships surged ahead, just as the explosives detonated, sending an avalanche of rock and debris crashing directly into their path. The rogue asteroid, destabilized by the controlled detonations, lurched into the fleet's advance. The Kryn corvettes tried to veer off. Some succeeded. Others weren't as lucky. One collided headfirst into the asteroid. Another was caught in the debris wave, its hull crumpling under the impact. For the first time, Admiral Vor miscalculated, and the price was his own fleet. The turning point. On the bridge of the Dauntless, the crew watched as the Kryn fleet descended into disarray. Martinez let out a low whistle. Well, that was something. Okoye stared at the wreckage. Did we just break their formation? Voss nodded. We did. Park leaned back, exhausted. We should not be alive right now. Voss's gaze remained on the screen. He wasn't celebrating yet, because Vor was still out there, and he was furious. The final battle was coming. The Dauntless limped to the wreckage of the battlefield, her engines flickering, her shields non-existent. Behind her, the Kryn fleet was in shambles. Corvettes and battlecruisers either destroyed or scattered, their once imposing formation now a chaotic mess of drifting debris. But this wasn't over. Admiral Skrull, Vor's dreadnought, loomed at the edge of the battlefield, undamaged and unshaken. His fleet may have faltered, but he had not, and he would not retreat. On the Dauntless Bridge, the mood was grim. We bought ourselves time, Dr. Miriam Okoye said, her voice low. But Vor isn't done. He'll come at us with everything he has left. We're barely holding together, Lieutenant Jean Park muttered. One good hit, and we're space dust. Voss stood at the center of the bridge, hands clasped behind his back. His crew was battered, exhausted, but not beaten. Then we don't let him hit us, he said simply. Gunnery Chief Rico Martinez raised an eyebrow. That's optimistic. Just realistic enough, Voss countered. He turned to Okoye. You said some of the Kryn officers were questioning Vor's leadership. Are they still listening? Okoye checked the comms panel, then nodded. Yes, I'm picking up isolated transmissions. Confusion, uncertainty. She paused, eyes widening. Some of them are even breaking formation. They're withdrawing. Martinez grinned. Guess they don't like watching their friends get turned into scrap metal. Park frowned. But Vor's ship isn't budging. He's staying to the bitter end. Voss exhaled. Good. That means we only have to beat him. A final, desperate gamble. The Dauntless couldn't outgun Vor's dreadnought. It couldn't outrun him. But it could outthink him one last time. Voss turned to Park. Can we simulate a reactor overload? She blinked. Again? You do realize we barely survived the last one. We don't have to fake it for long. Voss said. Just enough to make Vor hesitate. Okoye caught on. If he thinks we're about to self-destruct, he might pull back. Just for a second. Martinez grinned. And in that second, we make our move. Voss nodded. Exactly. Park sighed. You really like these insane plans, don't you? Voss just smiled. Let's get to work. Vor's fury. On the Kryn dreadnought, Admiral Vor seethed. His officers whispered, his fleet hesitated, but he would not yield. Enough. His voice was a growl of command. All batteries, target the human ship. Destroy it. The dreadnought's massive plasma lances charged, their glow illuminating the wreckage-strewn void. At that moment, the Dauntless engines flared uncontrollably. Warning signals flashed across all Kryn sensors, energy surges spiking off the charts. From the outside, it looked like the human ship was going critical. Vor hesitated. His officers muttered in uncertainty. If the human vessel detonated, the blast could cripple his own ship. And in that instant of doubt, Voss struck. The killing blow. The Dauntless cut thrusters, suddenly free-falling toward Vor's dreadnought. A controlled crash. At the last second, Park re-engaged emergency thrusters, sending the ship into a tight spiral around the Kryn vessel. Martinez fired the Dauntless' last remaining payload. Not the Kryn, but at the debris field behind them. The wreckage detonated, sending a shockwave directly into Vor's dreadnought. The impact shattered shields, breached hull plating, and overloaded critical systems. For the first time, Vor's ship was vulnerable, and humans never waste an opening. Voss slammed the comm switch. All remaining weapons fire. The Dauntless unleashed everything it had left. Railgun rounds tore through exposed bulkheads. Pulse cannons chewed through Kryn armor like paper. Vor roared in defiance. But even he couldn't stop the inevitable. The Kryn dreadnought shuddered fractured, then erupted in a final, fiery explosion. Victory, at a cost. Silence filled the bridge. Then, a single sound, the hissing static of Kryn comms breaking apart. Okoye exhaled. He's gone. Martinez let out a slow, disbelieving laugh. We actually did it. Park slumped back in her chair, rubbing her face. I don't know what's worse, that we survived or that I have to fix the ship now. Voss allowed himself a small smile, but his mind was already moving forward. Check the remaining Kryn forces. Are they still engaging? Okoye scanned the readings. Then she shook her head. They're retreating. Martinez gave a low whistle. Guess they don't like sticking around without their boss. Park exhaled, watching the fading ships on the screen. I'd run too. The aftermath. The battle was over. Against impossible odds, humanity had won. But as the crew of the Dauntless looked out at the wreckage, there was no celebration yet. Voss turned to Okoye. Give me a full casualty report. And find out if any Kryn ships are stranded. We're taking prisoners. Martinez raised an eyebrow. Prisoners? After all that? Voss nodded. Vor's dead. His officers were already questioning him. Some of them might be worth talking to. Okoye nodded in understanding. We might have just turned the tide of the entire war. Voss exhaled, running a hand through his hair. Let's hope so. The Dauntless was battered, broken, but it still flew. And as long as humanity could still fly, it would never stop fighting.